Professor Quillix had been teaching Xenobiology 301 for approximately 17 standard cycles, and in all that time, nothing particularly interesting had ever happened in his classroom. Sure, there was the incident with the Vexorian student who accidentally set their desk on fire during a presentation about combustible spore colonies. And yes, there was that memorable afternoon when a glimmerwing hatchling escaped from its containment tube and spent 3 hours bonded to the ceiling tiles, refusing to come down. But those were minor hiccups. Footnotes in an otherwise unremarkable academic career. Today, however, was about to become significantly more noteworthy. I sat in the third row, mandibles clicking softly as I transcribed the professor's lecture into my datapad. My name is Crix. By the way, Crixalon if you want to be formal about it, but nobody has time for that many syllables. I am a Thren, which means I have 4 arms, compound eyes that can see in multiple spectrums, and an exoskeleton that turns a rather fetching shade of purple when I am nervous. At this particular moment I was my usual cobalt blue, completely relaxed, utterly bored, and desperately wishing I had chosen literally any other elective course. The human sat 2 rows ahead of me. His name was Marcus, and he was the only member of his species enrolled in our section. Humans were still relatively new to the Galactic Federation, having only joined about 30 cycles ago, and they were something of a curiosity. Most of the galaxy found them bizarre, too soft, too fragile, too emotional. They had no natural armor, no venomous glands, no redundant organs, no protective fur or scales, just thin skin, brittle bones, and an alarming tendency to leak fluids when damaged. Marcus looked particularly unremarkable that morning. He wore a simple gray tunic, his dark hair was slightly messy, and he was leaning back in his chair with his feet propped up on the desk in front of him. This posture horrified Quillix, who had already asked him twice to sit properly. Marcus had smiled politely both times, waited approximately 40 seconds, and then returned his feet to their previous position. I found this quietly hilarious. Now then, Quillix was saying, his 3 eye stalks swiveling to regard the class. Today we will be discussing the Nexurian razorback, one of the most fascinating and dangerous predators in the known galaxy. He gestured with 2 of his tentacles toward the massive reinforced tank at the back of the classroom. Inside, barely visible through the frosted containment glass, something large and dark shifted in the shadows. The tank had been there all semester, but Quillix had never actually shown us its occupant. Too dangerous, he said. Too unpredictable. We would observe it only through recorded footage and sensor data. The razorback, Quillix continued, warming to his subject, is an apex predator from Nexar Prime, a death world with a gravitational pull twice that of standard norm. These creatures have evolved to be perfect killing machines, retractable claws that can slice through Dura steel, jaw strength capable of crushing Vrexian combat armor, sensory organs so acute they can detect the electrical impulses of a beating heart from 50 meters away, and most notably, a pack intelligence that allows them to coordinate hunts with terrifying efficiency. A Peluvian student named Voss raised one of her crystalline appendages. She always sat in the front row, always asked at least 7 questions per class, and always pronounced every word with excessive precision. Professor Quillix, if I may inquire, why do we keep such a dangerous specimen in a classroom environment? Would it not be more prudent to conduct our observations at a secure research facility? Quillix's eye stalks curved into what I recognized as his pleased expression. He loved that question. An excellent point, Voss. However, this particular razorback was donated to the university specifically for educational purposes. It is sedated, monitored continuously, and the containment system has 17 redundant security protocols. There is absolutely no possibility of escape. I would like to point out that these words, these exact words, are what we call in retrospect, ominously ironic foreshadowing. Marcus yawned, actually yawned, right there in the middle of the professor's safety speech. He caught my eye and gave me a small shrug, as if to say, "What can you do?" I clicked my mandibles in amusement. The lecture continued for another 20 minutes. Quillix showed us holographic projections of razorback anatomy, played audio recordings of their hunting calls, which sounded like metal being torn apart by angry machinery, and explained in exhaustive detail their reproductive cycle, which I will not describe here because it involves parasitic larvae and I am trying to keep my breakfast down. Then the alarm started. Not the gentle chiming that indicated the end of a class period. Not the polite beeping that meant someone had left their cooling unit open in the cafeteria. This was the kind of alarm that makes your survival instincts kick in immediately. The kind that says, stop whatever you are doing and run. Run now. Run fast. Do not look back. Red emergency lights flooded the classroom. A synthesized voice began broadcasting from the wall speakers. Warning. Containment breach. Warning. Containment breach. All personnel evacuate immediately. This is not a drill. Kulix's eye stalks went rigid. His skin tone shifted from healthy coral pink to panicked gray-white. He spun around to look at the tank at the back of the room, and I followed his gaze. The containment glass had a crack in it. Not a small crack. Not a hairline fracture. A massive spider-webbing crack that was spreading even as we watched. And behind that cracking glass, something was moving. Something big. Something that was hitting the barrier with systematic, calculated force. "Everyone out!" Kulix shrieked, his voice climbing several octaves. "Move! Now!" The classroom erupted into chaos. Students bolted for the exit in a panic stampede. Chairs overturned, datapads clattered to the floor. Someone, I think it was a Gorvian named Pelkix, started crying. The Peluvian student, boss, was reciting evacuation protocols from memory while simultaneously trying to climb over 3 other students to reach the door. I stood up, my exoskeleton now a vibrant purple, every survival instinct I possessed screaming at me to flee. I took 2 steps toward the exit, then made the mistake of looking back. The tank shattered, just completely exploded outward in a shower of reinforced glass and containment fluid, and through that cascading debris stepped the Razorback. It was massive. Easily 3 meters tall at the shoulder, built like violence given physical form. 6 legs, each ending in claws the length of my forearm. A head that was mostly teeth, arranged in 3 concentric rows that looked designed by something that really hated the concept of mercy. Its hide was covered in overlapping armored plates that gleamed black and red under the emergency lights. Spines ran along its back, each one dripping with venom that hissed and steamed when it hit the floor. The Razorback took 1 step into the classroom, shook itself like a wet canine, and roared. The sound hit me like a physical force. Every window in the room cracked. The emergency lights flickered. I tasted copper and ozone. My legs locked up, pure instinct overriding conscious thought. This was a predator. A real predator. And I was prey. Most of the students had made it to the exit by this point, shoving and scrambling over each other in their desperation to escape. Kulix had abandoned all pretense of authority and was actively using his tentacles to pull himself through the crowd faster. The Razorback watched this exodus with what I can only describe as contempt. It was not interested in running prey, not yet. It was taking its time, assessing the situation, deciding who would die first. Its head swiveled slowly across the room. Those eyes, black and multifaceted like volcanic glass, scanned each remaining student. I felt its gaze pass over me and nearly fainted. Every single cell in my body was screaming a very simple message. You are going to die. You are going to die badly. This is how you die. Then the Razorback saw Marcus. Marcus had not moved, while everyone else had stampeded toward the exit in a blind panic while the classroom had descended into screaming chaos. The human had simply stayed in his seat. His feet were still propped up on the desk. He was watching the Razorback with an expression of mild interest, the way you might observe a slightly unusual cloud formation or a particularly aggressive potted plant. The Razorback went very still. Its predatory attention focused entirely on the human. Here was prey that had not run, prey that had not acknowledged its own imminent death. This was wrong. This was not how prey behaved. This was confusing and therefore threatening and therefore something that needed to be destroyed immediately. The creature took a step toward Marcus, then another. It moved with the careful, deliberate grace of something that absolutely knows it is the most dangerous thing in the room. Its claws clicked against the floor tiles, that horrible clicking sound. Click, click. I was frozen by the exit, unable to look away. Part of me wanted to run. Part of me was screaming at me to run. But I could not seem to make my legs work. I was going to watch this human die, this weird, soft, impossibly fragile human who had sat 2 rows ahead of me all semester, who had smiled at me sometimes, who had once lent me a writing stylus when mine stopped working. Marcus slowly took his feet off the desk. He stood up, moving without any apparent rush or concern. He did not reach for a weapon, did not call for help, did not do any of the sensible things one might do when confronted by 3 meters of pure murder. Instead, he looked directly at the Razorback, made eye contact, just stared right into those black, soulless predator eyes. The Razorback stopped. Its advance halted mid-step, one massive paw raised and suspended in the air. Now I need to explain something about predator-prey dynamics. There are rules. Understood rules that govern how these interactions work across virtually every species in the galaxy. Prey runs. Predators chase. Prey shows fear. Predators exploit that fear. Prey tries to escape. Predators prevent escape. These are fundamental universal constants. What prey does not do, what prey never does under any circumstances, is look a predator directly in the eyes and refuse to back down. That is not prey behavior. That is predator behavior. Marcus tilted his head slightly, maintaining that unwavering eye contact. The emergency lights reflected in his eyes, giving them an almost luminous quality. He did not blink, did not look away, did not show even the slightest hint of fear. The Razorback made a sound I had never heard before. It was not a roar, it was not a growl, it was something between a whine and a question, as if the creature was deeply confused by what was happening. This was not in its programming. This was not how prey worked. Marcus took a step forward, toward the Razorback, toward the massive, clawed, venomous death machine that was literally designed by evolution to kill things. The Razorback took a step back. I stopped breathing. Several other students who had been watching from the doorway, unable to fully evacuate because of some horrible fascination with the unfolding scene, made small sounds of disbelief. Marcus took another step forward, still maintaining that eye contact, still showing absolutely no fear. His expression was calm, almost serene, like he was taking a casual walk through a park rather than confronting an apex predator. The Razorback took another step back, then another. Its ears, if you could call those spine-covered auditory organs ears, flattened against its head. Its tail, which had been raised in an aggressive posture, slowly lowered. The spines along its back, which had been bristling with threat, began to fold down. This was impossible. This violated every principle of xenobiology I had ever learned. The Razorback was an apex predator. It did not retreat. It did not submit. It certainly did not show deference to a prey species that massed maybe 1/10 of its body weight. Marcus stopped walking when he was maybe 3 meters from the creature. They stood there, human and Razorback, locked in this silent exchange. The air in the room felt heavy, charged with something I did not have words for. Then Marcus did something that made me question whether humans were actually insane as a species. He extended his hand, palm down, fingers relaxed, moving slowly and deliberately toward the Razorback's head. "No," someone whispered from the doorway. It might have been Voss, it might have been me. I honestly cannot remember. The Razorback watched that approaching hand with what I can only describe as trepidation. This creature, this perfect killing machine that had been terrorizing my nightmares for the past 3 minutes, was nervous about being touched by a human hand. Marcus's fingers made contact with the Razorback's snout. He gently stroked the armored plating just above its nose. The creature went absolutely rigid, every muscle locked. For a moment I thought it was going to snap his arm off at the shoulder. Then the Razorback closed its eyes, made a sound that was almost like a purr, and slowly, very slowly, it lowered itself to the ground. It lay down at Marcus's feet. This apex predator, this perfectly evolved killing machine, this creature that required 17 redundant security protocols to contain safely, just lay down at the feet of a human and submitted like a domesticated pet. Marcus scratched behind one of its ears. The Razorback made that purring sound again, louder this time, and its tail began to wag.
Actually wag.
Like it was happy. The human looked over his shoulder at the rest of us, still frozen in various states of shock and disbelief. He smiled. It was a friendly smile, maybe a little apologetic. "Sorry about the mess," he said, gesturing at the shattered tank and the general chaos. "I think it was just scared, new environment, confined space, probably pretty stressed, just needed someone to stay calm around it." Quelix made a sound like a punctured air bladder. Just scared. Just scared. That is a razorback, an apex predator from a death world. It should have torn you limb from limb. It should have eaten your skeleton. It should have. Yeah, Marcus interrupted gently, still petting the now content razorback. But it didn't. It just needed to understand I wasn't a threat. Predators are usually pretty good at reading body language. If you act like prey, they treat you like prey. If you act like you belong, like you are not afraid, most of them get confused. Confusion leads to caution. Caution leads to reassessment. He said this like it was obvious, like this was just basic common sense that everyone should know. Voz, who had apparently found her voice again, spoke from the doorway. Her tone was carefully controlled, but I could hear the hysteria lurking just beneath the surface. You faced down a razorback, with nothing, no weapons, no armor, no backup, just your eyes? Well, Marcus said thoughtfully, scratching the razorback under its chin, which made one of its back legs kick involuntarily. Technically, I used my whole body. Posture is important. Breathing, too. And I mean, it helps that I grew up with dogs. Big dogs. This is pretty similar, honestly, just scaled up and with more teeth. Dogs? I heard myself say, my voice coming out as a strangled squeak. You compared a razorback to a dog? Marcus shrugged. I mean, yeah, pack predator, hierarchical social structure, responds to confident body language and calm energy. It's basically the same principles. My family had a Rottweiler named Duke, who was way more intimidating than this guy. The razorback chose that moment to roll onto its back, exposing its belly to Marcus. The human laughed and started rubbing its stomach. The creature's back leg kicked again in obvious pleasure. I looked at Quillix. Quillix looked at me. We both looked at Marcus, who was now playing with a 3-meter-tall apex predator like it was a puppy. Humans, Quillix whispered, his eye stalks drooping in something approaching existential despair, are absolutely terrifying. I could not disagree. The security team arrived approximately 4 minutes later, armed with enough firepower to level a small building. They found Marcus sitting on the floor, the razorback's head in his lap, explaining to anyone who would listen that the creature probably just needed more enrichment activities in its enclosure. Maybe some puzzle feeders, he was saying, something to keep its mind occupied. Intelligent predators get bored easily. The head of security, a grizzled Corvaxian named Drell, who had seen approximately everything in his 40-cycle career, just stared at the scene for a long moment. Then he activated his comm unit. Command, this is Drell. Containment breach is, resolved. The razorback it appears to be, I am just going to say pacified, by a student. A human student. No, I have not been consuming prohibited substances. Send a containment team and probably a psychological evaluation unit. For me, not the human. Probably. They eventually managed to coax the razorback back into a reinforced transport container, though it kept looking back at Marcus with what I swear was longing in its terrible eyes. Marcus waved at it as they took it away. The creature made that purring sound again. Classes were cancelled for the rest of the day, which seemed prudent. The university administration launched an immediate investigation into how a supposedly secure containment system had failed so catastrophically. Quillix was put on administrative leave, which he seemed almost grateful for. Voss filed 17 separate incident reports, each one more detailed than the last. And Marcus went to the cafeteria and got lunch. Just walked away like he had not just done something that would be discussed in xenobiology departments across the galaxy for cycles to come. I followed him. I could not help myself. I needed to understand. I found him at a table near the windows, eating something that looked vaguely vegetable-adjacent and scrolling through his data pad. I approached cautiously, as if he might suddenly reveal himself to be more dangerous than the razorback. Can I sit here? I asked, my mandibles clicking nervously. Marcus looked up and smiled. Oh, hey, Crix. Yeah. Of course. Pull up a chair. I sat down across from him. For a moment I just stared. He continued eating his lunch, seemingly unconcerned by my scrutiny. I began, then stopped, started again. What you did back there, you do understand that was impossible, right? That should not have worked. That violated every known principle of predator behavior. Marcus chewed thoughtfully, swallowed. Did it though? I mean, it worked, so it clearly was possible. And predator behavior is pretty consistent across species. They all have the same basic instincts: territory, hierarchy, threat assessment. You just have to know how to communicate in ways they understand. But you are prey, I said, louder than I intended. Several nearby students looked over. I lowered my voice. You are prey. Humans have no natural defenses, no armor, no venom, no significant physical advantages. By any objective measure, you should have been killed instantly. Marcus set down his eating utensil. He looked at me with an expression I could not quite read. Crix, can I ask you something? What makes you think humans are prey? I blinked, all of my eyes, in sequence. Because you have no natural weapons. Your species evolved as gatherers, right? Fruit pickers, tool users. You avoided predators, did not confront them. Well, Marcus said slowly, that is partially true. We were gatherers. But we were also hunters. Persistence hunters. Specifically, we evolved to chase prey across vast distances until it literally collapsed from exhaustion. We can regulate our body temperature through sweating, which almost no other species can do. We can run for hours, days even, without stopping. We heal fast. We adapt to almost any environment. We have more endurance than basically any other creature on Earth. He paused, taking a drink. And here is the thing about being a persistence hunter. You cannot be afraid. You cannot give up. You cannot show weakness. Because if you do, you do not eat. Your tribe does not eat. So we evolved to be stubborn, to be relentless, to stare down things that should terrify us and just refuse to back down. I processed this information slowly. So you are saying what? That humans are predators?
No, Marcus said. I am saying humans are both. We are prey that learned to hunt. We are predators that never forgot what it is like to be hunted. We exist in this weird middle space, and it gave us a perspective that pure predators or pure prey species do not have. We understand both sides.
He smiled again. That razorback, it expected prey or it expected another predator. What it got was something it did not have context for. Something that acted like prey in some ways and like a predator in others. That confusion, that gave me the opening I needed. The rest was just confidence and understanding what body language to use. Just confidence, I repeated. You made an apex predator submit through just confidence. Well, that and not panicking. Panic is what gets you killed. Stay calm. Assess the situation. Respond appropriately. Works for razorbacks. Worked for bears and wolves back on Earth. Probably works for most dangerous situations. Honestly. I sat there for a long moment, trying to reconcile everything I thought I knew about humans with what I had just witnessed. Marcus returned to his lunch, scrolling through his data pad like this was just another normal day. Humans are terrifying, I said finally. Marcus laughed. Yeah, I have been hearing that a lot today. He looked up at me, his expression friendly. But we are also pretty good at being friends. That counts for something, right? I clicked my mandibles in what I hoped was agreement. Yes, I suppose it does. And that is how I learned that humans, those soft, fragile, seemingly defenseless creatures, might actually be the most dangerous species in the galaxy. Not because they are the strongest, or the fastest, or the most heavily armed, but because they simply refuse to acknowledge when they should be afraid. The incident, as it came to be known in official university records, sparked what I can only describe as a campus-wide obsession with humanity. Within 2 days, enrollment in human studies courses increased by 300%. The library's entire collection of human anthropological texts was checked out. Students who had never shown the slightest interest in xenocultural studies were suddenly attending every lecture, seminar, and discussion group that mentioned Earth or its inhabitants. And Marcus? Marcus became something of a reluctant celebrity. I watched this transformation with a mixture of fascination and concern. He handled the attention with the same casual confidence he had shown the razorback, which is to say he mostly ignored it and went about his business. But the other students would not leave him alone. They followed him between classes. They asked him increasingly bizarre questions. They wanted to know if all humans could dominate apex predators with eye contact, or if Marcus was somehow exceptional. "I am really not," he told a group of 7 students who had cornered him outside the astrophysics building 3 days after the incident. "I just grew up around animals. My mom is a veterinarian. I spent my childhood helping her with everything from hamsters to horses. You learn to read body language, that is all." "That is all," repeated a xenotherapy student named Kel, his scales rippling with disbelief. "You faced a razorback, and you say it is just about reading body language?" Marcus sighed. He had been sighing a lot lately. "Look, it is not magic. It is observation and pattern recognition. Animals, predators especially, they communicate constantly through posture, eye contact, vocalizations, scent. If you pay attention, you can understand what they are thinking, what they are feeling, then you respond appropriately." "But how did you know it would not simply attack you?" pressed another student, a Theleron named Tisk. "I did not know for sure," Marcus admitted, "but I assessed the probability as low based on its behavior. It was posturing, trying to establish dominance. That is not the same as actual predatory aggression. If it had been hunting, actually hunting, the approach would have been different. Quieter, more focused. This was territorial display more than anything." The students absorbed this information like it was sacred wisdom being dispensed by an ancient prophet. I hung back from the crowd, watching and listening. I had been doing that a lot lately, observing Marcus, trying to understand what made humans different. That evening, I found myself in the university's xenobiology lab, accessing the restricted archives. I wanted to know more about Earth, about human evolution, about what had shaped this species into what they were. The more I learned, the more disturbed I became. Earth was classified as a Class 7 death world. That meant it was in the top 15% of most hostile planetary environments in the known galaxy: high gravity, extreme temperature variations, aggressive microbial life, atmospheric instability, tectonic activity, and perhaps most significantly, an absolutely staggering diversity of large predators. Humans had evolved in an environment where literally everything was trying to kill them. The planet itself was trying to kill them. The weather was trying to kill them. The diseases were trying to kill them. And the wildlife was definitely trying to kill them. I pulled up a file on something called a hippopotamus. It looked like a large, blubbery creature with a huge mouth. Harmless, right? Wrong. Apparently these things killed more humans per year than almost any other animal on Earth. They were aggressively territorial, could run faster than a human despite weighing several tons, and had jaws strong enough to bite a human in half. Then there were the big cats: lions, tigers, leopards, jaguars. Pack hunters, ambush predators, creatures with claws and teeth designed specifically to kill large prey, and humans had not only survived alongside these animals, they had thrived. They had spread across every continent, adapted to every climate, conquered every ecological niche. I found a historical document about something called tiger hunting. Humans, armed with primitive projectile weapons, had actively sought out and hunted one of their planet's apex predators. They had turned being prey into being the hunter, and they had done it so successfully that tigers had nearly gone extinct. There was a section on human physical capabilities that made me read the same paragraphs 3 times to make sure I was understanding correctly. Humans could survive injuries that would kill most species. They could lose significant amounts of blood and remain conscious. They could operate effectively with broken bones. They could fight through pain that would incapacitate others. They had something called adrenaline, a biological chemical that turned fear into enhanced physical performance. And perhaps most terrifying, they had persistence, relentless, stubborn, almost supernatural persistence. There were accounts of humans tracking wounded prey for days, weeks even, never giving up, never stopping, just following and following until their target collapsed from exhaustion. We were not dealing with prey. We were dealing with the most successful predator Earth had ever produced. A predator that hunted other predators, a predator that had climbed to the top of its food chain not through strength or speed or natural weapons, but through intelligence, endurance, and absolute refusal to quit. I closed the files, my exoskeleton now a deep purple. I needed to talk to someone about this, someone who would understand the implications. I found Voss in the library the next morning. She was surrounded by books, data pads, and scattered notes. She looked like she had not slept in approximately 48 hours. "Crix," she said when she noticed me approaching. Her normally precise speech was slightly slurred with exhaustion. "Have you been researching human evolutionary history? Because I have been researching human evolutionary history, and I have come to some deeply concerning conclusions, such as..." I sat down across from her. "Such as the fact that humans are persistent predators who evolved to hunt through sheer stubborn refusal to stop. Such as the fact that their planet tried to kill them constantly and they just adapted. Such as the fact that they regularly engage in activities for recreation that would be classified as survival scenarios for most other species." She pushed a datapad toward me. On the screen was documentation about something called rock climbing. Humans voluntarily scaling vertical surfaces, often without safety equipment, apparently for enjoyment. "They do this for fun," Voss said, her voice climbing. "They intentionally put themselves in mortal danger for entertainment. There are entire categories of human recreational activities based around risking death. They call them extremes. There is base jumping, where they throw themselves off buildings and cliffs with nothing but a fabric parachute. There is free diving, where they descend to crushing ocean depths on a single breath. There is something called bull riding, where they deliberately climb onto an enraged bovine and try to stay mounted while it attempts to kill them." "I saw that one," I said quietly. 8 seconds. They try to stay on for 8 seconds. The humans who can do this are considered skilled. And that is not even addressing their combat sports," Voss continued, pulling up another file. "Boxing, where they punch each other in the head repeatedly until someone cannot continue. Wrestling, where they try to physically dominate each other through grappling. Mixed martial arts, which combines multiple fighting disciplines into what is essentially controlled violence." She looked at me, her crystalline eyes reflecting the library's soft lighting. "They have created entire entertainment industries around watching members of their own species hurt each other, and they enjoy it. Both the participants and the viewers." I clicked my mandibles thoughtfully. "It makes sense, though, in a way. If you evolve in an environment where violence is constant, where danger is the norm, you would need to prepare for it. Practice it. Their combat sports are training, ritualized preparation for real conflict." "Which brings me to my main concern," Voss said, leaning forward. "What happens when humans experience real conflict? Not sport, not training. Actual warfare." I had been avoiding thinking about that. The Federation had been at peace for nearly 200 cycles. We had conflicts, certainly, but they were resolved through diplomacy, economic pressure, legal proceedings. We had not had a major war in living memory. But humans? Humans had been at war with each other almost continuously throughout their history. I had seen the records: World War I, World War II, Korea, Vietnam, the Middle Eastern conflicts. The list went on and on. They had developed weapons capable of destroying their entire planet. They had created strategies and tactics refined through thousands of years of killing each other. They had turned warfare into a science. "I think," I said slowly, "that we are very fortunate humans joined the Federation peacefully, because if they had not, if they had arrived as conquerors instead of diplomats, I am not sure anyone could have stopped them." Voss nodded grimly. "I have been running simulations, hypothetical conflict scenarios between human forces and various Federation military units. The results are disturbing. Humans have no natural advantages in strength or speed, but their tactical thinking, their adaptability, their willingness to accept casualties and continue fighting. It changes the mathematics of warfare. They do not retreat when they should. They do not surrender when it is logical. They just keep coming." We sat in silence for a moment, contemplating the implications of a species that refused to acknowledge defeat. "We should probably stop researching this," Voss said finally. "I am starting to have nightmares about being chased by persistence hunters across endless plains." I understood the feeling, but I could not stop thinking about it. Could not stop trying to understand what made humans what they were. The following week our xenobiology class resumed. Willix had returned from administrative leave looking older somehow, despite his species not showing age in conventional ways. The classroom had been completely rebuilt. The reinforced tank was gone, replaced by holographic display units. No more live specimens. No more risks. Marcus sat in his usual seat. I had moved up to sit next to him. We had become something like friends in the aftermath of the incident. He seemed to appreciate that I treated him normally, did not ask him to explain himself, or demonstrate his abilities or answer the same questions over and over. "All right, class," Quillix began, his voice lacking its usual enthusiasm. "Today we will be discussing predator social structures using entirely recorded data. There will be no live demonstrations. There will be no physical specimens. We will be observing everything from a safe, remote, digital distance." Several students looked disappointed. The incident had given them a taste for danger, apparently. They wanted more excitement. Quillix activated the holographic display. An image appeared, showing what looked like a pack of canine-like creatures coordinating a hunt. They moved with precision, cutting off escape routes, driving their prey toward waiting pack members. It was beautiful in a terrible way. "These are Varaxian howlers," Quillix explained. "They hunt in packs of 15 to 20 individuals. Notice how they communicate through vocalizations and body language. Each member has a specific role in the hunt. The alpha pair lead the attack, the betas flank, the juveniles learn by observing." Marcus was watching with interest. Real interest, not the polite pretense most students showed. He leaned forward slightly. "That is similar to wolf pack dynamics," he said. "The coordination, the role specialization. Though wolves are more flexible in their strategies, they adapt based on prey type and terrain." Quillix's eye stalks swiveled toward Marcus with something that looked like trepidation. "You are familiar with wolves? Those are Earth predators, correct?" "Yeah," Marcus said. "Apex predators. They were almost hunted to extinction a few centuries ago, but conservation efforts brought them back. I did a research project on wolf reintroduction to Yellowstone National Park. Fascinating stuff. When they brought wolves back to the ecosystem, it changed everything. The elk started behaving differently, which changed vegetation patterns, which changed river flows, trophic cascades." You hunted them to extinction?" a student asked, from the back of the room. "Almost extinction," Marcus corrected. "We stopped before they were completely gone. Realized we needed them for ecosystem health. Now they are protected in most areas." "But you did hunt them," the student pressed. "You hunted your planet's apex predators?" Marcus shrugged. "Well, yeah. Humans hunted everything. Still do in regulated ways. Hunting is part of our cultural heritage across almost every civilization. It is how we survived for most of our history." The class had gone very quiet. Students were exchanging glances. Quillix looked like he wanted to end the lecture immediately and hide in his office. I decided to redirect the conversation. "Marcus, can I ask you something? That day with the Razorback, you said you grew up around animals. Can you tell us more about that? What it was like?" Marcus seemed to relax slightly, grateful for the shift to less volatile topics. "Sure, my mom runs a veterinary clinic that specializes in exotic and dangerous animals. We had everything come through. Injured predators, rescued relative, illegal pets that needed rehoming. I was helping her handle patients from the time I could walk." He smiled at some memory. "I remember when I was maybe 7 years old. She had to treat a black bear with an infected paw. This thing was huge, probably 250 kilograms. It was sedated, but you could still see the muscle, the power. I asked her if she was scared. She said fear is information, not instruction. You feel it, you process it, then you do what needs to be done anyway. Fear is information, not instruction." I repeated. That is an interesting perspective." "It is practical," Marcus said. "Fear tells you there is danger. Good, useful data. But if you let it control you, if you let it make your decisions, you cannot function. You learn to acknowledge the fear, understand what it is telling you, and then act based on logic and training rather than panic." Quillix had recovered enough to rejoin the conversation. That is quite profound. Most species treat fear as an imperative, something that must be obeyed. You are saying humans have learned to override that instinct. Not override, Marcus clarified. Coexist with it. We feel fear just as much as anyone else. Probably more, honestly. Our imagination lets us anticipate dangers that might not even exist yet. But we have cultural and personal strategies for managing that fear. Courage is not the absence of fear. It is acting despite fear. A Peluvian student raised an appendage. But why would evolution favor that? If fear is designed to keep you alive, why develop the ability to ignore it? Marcus thought about this for a moment. Because sometimes the safe choice is the wrong choice. Sometimes you have to face the danger to survive. If our ancestors had always run from predators, always avoided risk, always chosen safety, they would have starved, they would have failed to defend their families. They would have died out. The ones who survived were the ones who could feel fear and act anyway. He gestured to the holographic howlers, still frozen mid-hunt. Those pack hunters. They are brave too. They have to be. Hunting large prey is dangerous. They risk injury, death. But they do it because they must. Humans are not unique in that. I think we have maybe refined it more than most species. Turned it into a cultural value. We celebrate courage. We tell stories about heroes who faced impossible odds. We teach our children that bravery matters. The lecture continued, but I stopped taking notes. I was too busy processing what Marcus had said. Humans did not just tolerate fear, they had built entire cultural frameworks around managing it. They celebrated individuals who overcame terror to achieve goals. They trained themselves from childhood to act despite instinct. After class, as students filed out, I stayed behind. So did Voss. We waited until most of the room had cleared, then approached Quelix together. Professor Voss said, her precise diction firmly back in place, "May we speak with you about a matter of some importance?" Quelix looked wary. "If this is about extra credit following the incident, I have already submitted the paperwork." "No," I said. "This is about humans, about what they are, what they represent." Quelix's eye stalks drooped. "Ah, you have been researching them." "Extensively," Voss confirmed, "and we have come to some conclusions that we believe require institutional attention." "Such as?" Quelix gestured for us to continue. "Such as the fact that humans are not prey," I said. "They are not even normal predators. They are something the galaxy has not encountered before. Persistence hunters with technological capabilities, emotional intelligence that allows them to form bonds with other species, and a cultural framework that values courage, endurance, and adaptability above physical strength. They are individually weaker than most species," Voss added, "but collectively they are potentially the most dangerous civilization in the Federation. And I do not think the Federation leadership fully understands this." Quelix was quiet for a long moment. Then he sighed, a whistling sound through his respiratory apertures. "You are not the first to raise these concerns. There have been discussions, classified discussions at levels well above my position. The Federation Council is aware of certain unique aspects of human psychology and capabilities." "And?" I prompted. "And they have decided that humans are more valuable as allies than they would be as enemies. Which is why the integration process has been so carefully managed. Why humans are encouraged to attend universities like this one, to serve in Federation civilian roles, to build connections and relationships across species." He fixed us with all three eye stalks. "The Federation learned long ago that the most dangerous species are not the strongest or the fastest. They are the ones who refuse to give up, the ones who adapt, the ones who turn disadvantages into advantages. Humans represent an extreme example of that principle." "So what do we do?" I asked. "Just accept that we share the galaxy with apex persistence predators who happen to be friendly." "For now, yes," Quelix said, "and we hope they stay friendly, because the alternative is not something I wish to contemplate." That conversation haunted me for days, but life continued. Classes resumed their normal rhythm. The incident became campus legend, exaggerated and embellished with each retelling. Marcus returned to being just another student, though he could not escape the occasional request to explain himself or demonstrate some human ability. 2 weeks after our conversation with Quelix, something happened that put everything into sudden, sharp perspective. The attack came without warning. Pirates, we learned later, a faction of Korvaxian separatists who had broken away from the Federation. They had been raiding outlying colonies for months, but intelligence had not predicted they would strike at a university. They were wrong. I was in the library when the alarms started. Different alarms this time. Not containment breach. Hostile boarding. The kind of alarm that meant someone was actively trying to kill you right now. The lights went red. Automated doors sealed. Defensive shields activated over windows. And somewhere in the distance, I heard weapons fire, the sharp crack of energy weapons discharging, screaming, the sound of running. Students around me panicked. Of course they did. We were academics, not soldiers. We had no training for this, no context for violence on this scale. We huddled under desks, behind shelves, anywhere that felt safe even though safety was an illusion. I found myself pressed against a wall with Voss and 3 other students I barely knew. We could hear the pirates moving through the building, harsh voices shouting in Korvaxian, the crash of doors being forced open, more screaming, suddenly cut short. "We are going to die," Voss whispered. Her crystalline structure was vibrating with fear. "We are going to die here." I could not disagree. I was so scared I could not feel my limbs. My exoskeleton had gone past purple into almost black. Every instinct screamed at me to run, but there was nowhere to go. We were trapped. The library doors exploded inward. 3 Korvaxian pirates stormed in, heavily armed, covered in combat armor. They looked like nightmares given form. One of them spotted our hiding spot immediately. "There," he barked. 5 targets. Subdue them." They advanced toward us. We pressed harder against the wall as if we could somehow phase through it and escape. This was it. This was how we died. I thought about my family, about all the things I would never do, about the fact that my last thought was going to be regret. Then a voice cut through the chaos. Calm, clear, utterly unafraid. "Hey!" One word, just one word, but it made the pirates stop, made them turn, made them redirect their attention. Marcus stood in the doorway. He was not hiding, not cowering. He was just standing there, hands at his sides, looking at 3 heavily armed pirates, with the same expression he had used on the Razorback. "You should probably leave," Marcus said. "This is not going to end well for you." The lead pirate laughed. Actually laughed. "Human, unarmed human, thinks he can stop us." "I am not going to stop you," Marcus said. "I am giving you the chance to leave. What you do with that chance is up to you." The pirate raised his weapon. "Last mistake you will ever make, pray." Marcus moved. I cannot adequately describe what happened next. It was too fast, too violent, too impossible. Marcus crossed the distance between himself and the pirates in perhaps 2 seconds. He ducked under the first weapon, grabbed it, twisted. There was a snapping sound. The pirate screamed. Marcus had broken his arm. The second pirate tried to shoot. Marcus was already moving. He used the first pirate's body as a shield, then drove forward, shoulder-checking the second pirate with enough force to send him crashing into a bookshelf. The shelf toppled. The pirate went down under hundreds of kilograms of falling books and shelving. The third pirate got a shot off. It went wide. Marcus closed with him, moving with a speed and precision that spoke of training. Real training, the kind you get from a species that has been fighting wars for its entire existence. He struck the pirate's throat, his knee, his weapon arm. 3 hits, maybe 4 seconds. The pirate collapsed, gasping for air. It was over before I even fully understood it had started. Marcus stood in the middle of the library, breathing hard but controlled, surrounded by 3 incapacitated pirates. He picked up one of their weapons, checked it with practiced efficiency, then looked over at us. "Everyone okay?" he asked. We stared at him. I think my mandibles were literally hanging open. "I need to get you somewhere safe," Marcus continued, like he had not just taken down 3 armed combatants with his bare hands. "Stay close. Move when I move. If I tell you to get down, you get down." "Understood." We nodded mutely. What else could we do? Marcus led us through the building. We encountered more pirates. He dealt with them efficiently, methodically. No wasted movement, no hesitation, just smooth, brutal competence. He was not cruel about it. He did not kill anyone, but he put them down hard enough that they stayed down. We reached a secure room where security forces were coordinating the defense. Marcus handed us off to them, then turned to head back into the chaos. "Wait," I said. "Where are you going?" "There are more students," Marcus said simply. "I am going to get them." And he was gone, back into the danger. Running toward the gunfire while everyone else ran away, the attack lasted another hour. Federation security forces arrived and pushed the pirates back. We learned later that Marcus had rescued 17 students, incapacitated 8 pirates, and provided tactical information that helped coordinate the counter-assault. When it was over, when we were finally cleared to leave the secure room, I found Marcus sitting against a wall in a hallway. He had cuts on his face, his clothes were torn. He looked exhausted. I sat down next to him. Neither of us spoke for a while. Finally I said, "You have combat training." "Some," Marcus admitted. "Basic hand-to-hand. My dad was military. He taught me, said it was important to know how to defend yourself and others. I never thought I would need it. You saved us." I did what anyone would do. "No," I said firmly. "No. What you did is not what anyone would do. Most species would have hidden, would have waited for help, would have prioritized their own survival. You ran toward danger. You fought when you were outgunned and outmatched. That is not normal behavior." Marcus looked at me, smiled slightly. "It is normal human behavior. We have this saying, we leave no one behind. It means when things get bad, when it is dangerous, we do not abandon each other. We do not save ourselves at the cost of others. We go back. We fight. We bring everyone home if we can. Even when it is illogical, even when the risk is too high. Especially then," Marcus said, "because that is when it matters most." We sat there for a while longer. Other students filed past. Some thanked Marcus. Some just stared. Word was spreading about what he had done, about what humans were capable of. Later that evening, after medical checks and debriefings and all the administrative necessities, I returned to my quarters. I pulled up my research files on humans one more time, added new notes, new observations. Humans were not prey. They were not normal predators. They were something else entirely. They were survivors, fighters, protectors. They had evolved in hell and adapted to thrive there. They had faced every possible danger their planet could throw at them, and not only survived, but spread across the entire world. And now they were here, in the galaxy, among us. Some species would find that terrifying, and maybe they should. Humans were dangerous in ways the galaxy had never encountered. Not because they were strong, but because they refused to quit, because they would fight impossible odds, because they would sacrifice themselves for others, because they had this bizarre, illogical, completely irrational commitment to courage and loyalty that overrode their survival instincts. But here is what I realized, sitting there in my quarters, writing my notes. That same commitment that made them dangerous also made them the best friends you could possibly have. Because if a human cared about you, if they considered you pack, tribe, family, they would face down razorbacks for you. They would run into pirate attacks for you. They would stand between you and danger without hesitation. Humans were terrifying, but they were terrifying in the best possible way. The next day I found Marcus in the cafeteria again. Same table, same spot, like nothing had happened. I sat down across from him. "So," I said, "I have been thinking about humans, about what you are. I think I understand now." "Yeah?" Marcus looked up from his food. "What do you understand?" "You are the reason the galaxy should be grateful the Federation made first contact peacefully, because a species that can domesticate apex predators through eye contact, that fights when they should flee, that runs toward danger to save others, that species could have conquered the galaxy if they wanted to, but instead, you chose friendship." Marcus was quiet for a moment. Then he laughed, not a mocking laugh, a genuine warm laugh. That is actually really nice. "Thank you, Crix. I am serious," I insisted. "I know you are, and I appreciate it. But here is the thing. Humans are not that special. We are survivors. We do what we have to do. And mostly, we want the same things everyone wants. Safety, friendship, a chance to live without constant threat. We have had enough violence in our history. We are happy to try something different. But you are still capable of violence when necessary." "Yeah," Marcus agreed, "when necessary. We will not start fights, but we will finish them." That is another human saying. Do not start fights, but if someone else starts one, you end it. Decisively. I clicked my mandibles in what I hoped conveyed understanding. "Then I am glad you are here. Glad humans are here. Because having friends who can stare down razorbacks and fight pirates, that is not a bad thing." Marcus grinned. No, it is not. And that, fundamentally, is the story of how I learned what humans really are. Not prey, not predators. something in between, something unique. Persistence hunters who evolved to never give up, who turned fear into information, who valued courage and loyalty above safety, and who decided to use all those terrifying capabilities to protect rather than conquer. The galaxy is a safer place, with humans in it. Not because they eliminate danger, but because when danger comes, they are the ones who stand in front of it and refuse to move. They are the ones who look into the eyes of nightmares and make the nightmares blink first. And honestly, that is exactly the kind of friend you want when things get difficult. As for the Razorback, I heard later that Marcus had volunteered to help the Xenobiology department redesign its containment protocols and enrichment programs. The creature had been placed in a larger habitat with puzzle feeders and environmental complexity. Marcus visited it regularly. Apparently, they were friends now. Of course they were. Because that is what humans do. They see something dangerous, something that should terrify them, and they think, maybe we can be friends. And somehow, impossibly, it works. That is humanity in one sentence. Terrifying, illogical, completely insane, and absolutely wonderful.